The Roman Empire existed from 753 BC to 476 AD. Its rulers marked by strong leaders, amazing architectural achievements, and the conquest of the entire Mediterranean. In the 3rd century AD, economic, social, political, and military problems threatened the empire's stability. However, the immediate cause of the fall of the Roman Empire was invasion by Germanic tribes. Together, these problems led to the fall of the Roman Empire. One thing that led to the fall of the Roman Empire was problems with the economy. Overworked farmland in Italy and Western Europe caused the soil to lose its fertility, and years of war had destroyed much of the farmland. What remained of the farmland yielded poor harvests. This led to food shortages, which in turn caused a decline in the population. Another problem was that hostile tribes outside the empire's boundaries, as well as pirates on the Mediterranean Sea, caused disruptions in trade. There was also no more war plunder, which also decreased the empire's income. The empire had reached its limit of expansion, so they lacked new sources of gold and silver. Because they didn't have enough, the coins were minted with less of the precious metals. The economy soon suffered from inflation, which is a drastic drop in the value of money and a rise in prices. This led to a crushing tax burden on the people. There was also a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Rich landowners lived on huge estates and hired slaves for work. Small farmers could not compete with large estates, so they sold their land to wealthy landowners. They became part of the urban poor, who were people without homes or jobs. Some went to the city to look for work, but most stayed in the countryside and worked as seasonal migrant laborers. All these problems led to an increasingly impoverished Western Empire. Another thing that led to the fall of the Roman Empire was social problems. Citizens' interest in public affairs began to decline, and they had a low confidence in the empire. They used to care so deeply about the Republic that they would have sacrificed their lives, but now they showed nothing but disloyalty. There was also corruption and a lack of patriotism among citizens, and they had become indifferent to the empire's fate. The contrast between the rich and the poor also created problems among them. Food shortages and disease led to a drastic decline in the population. People had also become more loyal to the church than to the empire. They spent less time serving the empire and more time serving the church. The immediate cause of the empire's fall was invasion by Germanic tribes. Since the time of Julius Caesar, Germanic people had gathered on the northern borders of the empire. However, they wished to coexist with the Roman Empire in peace. Around 370 AD, the Huns, a fierce group of nomads from Central Asia, moved into the region. The Germanic people began to push into Roman lands to flee from the Huns. They moved in through Gaul, Spain, and North Africa. The Western Empire could not stop them because they had no army to keep the Germanic people out. In 410 AD, hordes of Visigoths and German tribes overran Rome and plundered it for 3 days.
Diocletian claimed descent from ancient Roman gods to restore prestige of office and emperor. During his ruling, he doubled the size of the Roman army. He set fixed price goods, for goods, to control the inflation. And he believed that empire was too large and complex for just one ruler. And for that belief that he had, he took half for himself and he split it. And the split included most of the empire's great cities and trade centers, and it was far wealthier than the western side. He also appointed a co-ruler for the west, and he retired in 305 AD, and he left no line of succession, and that ended up in the result of a civil war. In 330 AD, the capital from Rome was moved to Byzantium, also known as Constantinople, as capital. Constantinople may be found on the Bosphorus Strait, and that was a strategic location essentially for trade and defense on the crossroad between East and the West. In 324 AD, the concept of a single ruler was restored as the control of the East was gained. In 330 AD, the Edict of Milan was issued, and the purpose that the Edict of Milan served was to end the persecution of Christians, and it guaranteed freedom of worship. Then, 1 year later, in 312 AD, Constantine won the battle at Milvian Bridge over Tiber River, and that was near Rome. He claimed that he saw a cross before battle, and it helped him believe that God was with him and helped him to win. That same year, Constantine gained control of the western part of the empire. In addition to what was previously mentioned about Constantine, that the cross that he saw before battle helped him win the battle, and something else is that the people became more loyal to the church than to the state, and they cared more about serving the church compared to the empire. And the reason for that is that they wanted, I guess, to seek after light and good heaven. Slowly, the Roman Empire was fading away to termination. Through this, the military suffered a point of disorganization. There were problems recruiting Roman citizens to be a part of the military. With the lack of soldiers, mercenaries, or foreign soldiers were recruited as they fought for a lower amount of pay than the Romans. The mercenaries felt a little sense of loyalty to Rome, unlike the Romans, whose patriotism and loyalty decreased. The Roman soldiers gave their allegiance to their commanders instead of Rome, as the commanders fought for the throne. That made them less disciplined and loyal. The funding that the empire had for its defense was low, even during the times when there were threats from the northern European tribes. The Huns united for the first time under Attila in 444 AD. Attila had 100,000 soldiers and terrorized both halves of the empire. On the east side, 70 cities were both attacked and plundered, in which nobody could get past the walls of Constantinople. By 452 AD, Attila's forces advanced against Rome. Something that kept them from conquering the city was famine and the spread of disease. A year later, Attila died in 453 AD. Last but not least, in 476 AD, the German forces ousted Romulus Augustulus, who was 14 at the time, and he was the last emperor of Rome. Then the power in the Western Empire vanished, but the cultural influences, such as the ideas, the customs, and the institutions continued. Therefore, political, social, economic, military, and immediate causes played a role in the fall of the Roman Empire.